Hey there, Bible buddies. I've got another Bible review for you today, and this one is a Holman edition of the New International Version from 1984, and it's their Ultrathin Reference Bible. And this particular one is in black bonded leather. I'm going to get started by showing you guys the box. It's very early 90s design. I love it, the marbling. And there you go. So you guys can read it if you want. Pause it and read. There's a little sample of the text. Made in Belgium. If you saw that, you saw it. If you know, you know. There's the UPC and the item number. And in the back, there's nothing. It's just a two-piece box, white plains, on the back. Nothing to speak of. Nothing to write home about, that's for sure. Now, this edition is black, like I said, black bonded leather. And bonded leather, if you're not familiar with bonded leather is essentially all the scraps of leather from other Bibles that they bound. They mix it with like glue. It's like the particle board of leather. It kind of looks like leather for a little bit, and then it starts wearing away. This one actually is starting to crack all the way down there in the very bottom corner, and that's what happens. They just start cracking and wearing, and they fall apart. They're not high quality construction Bibles, that's for sure. And this particular edition isn't even sewn. This is a glued binding or a double fan or a perfect bound edition. So if you're looking for a 1984 NIV, your pickings are kind of slim because they're out of production. And if I remember correctly, I don't think that the licensing company for the NIV license the use of the 84 anywhere. So you're kind of limited as far as to what you can find on eBay, and which is sad because I know a lot of people love the 84 translation of the NIV. So it'd be nice to see them offer something like that again, an older edition, in new print, but I don't think that's going to happen. So again, you're kind of limited on your offerings as far as an 84 edition of the NIV. But go ahead and take a look. Now, all of this is going to be all fabricated and synthetic, so this is not a real grain. It's a press grain, and that you have that little perimeter line there to help make it a little fancy. Helps out just a little bit. And this is again an ultra thin edition, so you can see it's fairly trim here as far as the size goes. It is about a full size Bible. It's very good size, maybe a mid-size, full-size, somewhere in there. But it's a good-sized Bible, but very thin. You have a Holy Bible there on the spine, along with New International Version, and then Holman Bible Publishers logo, their older one, with a sword and the H. And you have 5 spine hubs, and they are kind of, I guess they're pressed, but they feel raised. And you have the little gold gilt on either side of them, which is a nice kind of break from the norm, because normally if they do this kind of the gold indications, they don't do the actual spine hubs, but here they have a combination of both, and it feels kind of nice. On the back, just plain black, nothing on it, no indication that it's bonded leather. On the inside, we have very corner work, very sloppy corner work. I'm not pointing any fingers now, but definitely not the best corners I've seen ever. And then it's just a black synthetic paste down. Really nothing to write home about. As far as the head and tail bands go, it's a golden black kind of striped head and tail band. The gilt actually looks very nice on this edition. I'll give them that. Kudos to that. It looks very, very well done. The gilt. And then the ribbon is also nice. It's a double-sided satin ribbon, maybe even silk. It feels very nice. It's a very nice ribbon. Very narrow, but appropriate for the size of the Bible. I like it. It's a nice ribbon. Especially for the price, right? Now, we're going to open it up and immediately find some weirdness. I'm looking, please don't tell me this is the first page. No, this is the first page. So your certificate of marriage and your certificate of marriage is on the very first page. It's kind of weird because, what if you're not married? But you're married to yourself? I don't know. But you don't have a place to really put your name, you know what I mean? Like a presentation page. Then you have your birth page. Let me scoot it up a little so I'm better in frame. I've been all over the place today. You have your birth page. And then you have your desk page, and then you have your Holy Bible title page, and your secondary title page here, the New International Version, Ultrathin Reference Edition, and then Broadman and Holman Publishers. So this is a telltale sign to tell if it's glued, right? You'll see an actual glue line here. You can see it. Another way that I can tell is, this is a little harder to tell. You don't see any signatures. It's like all the pages are evenly spaced. When you have a book that's sewn, it'll have signatures, which is like groups of pages that are sewn together. And those pages will naturally kind of break every so often. It'll be pretty uniform in that regard. And then also, if you need to check sometimes, you can check way down here. If you pull down the head or the tail band, sometimes you can see glue on the bottom there. That one isn't always great because if they get sloppy with their gluing of the head and tail band, sometimes that glue can overflow and it'll trick you and make you think it's fan bound or glued binding. So those are just some things to look out for. I didn't realize this one was glued until I got it, and I had to examine it for a couple seconds before I could even tell. But when I do have a glued binding, the one thing I don't do is I don't do a librarian break-in. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to do that because I don't need to stretch the spine because the spine's not sewn. So there's no need to do a librarian break-in on a glued Bible. And to be honest, it probably risk breaking it sooner, because this glue is only going to hold it for so many uses and the pages are going to start coming out. So just something to consider, I guess. I would not recommend a break-in on this. Here's the copyright page. You can see this layout was done in 1986, but this is the 1984 edition, and you can see all these editions of the Ultrathin. Holman has always been known for their Ultrathin edition. And just about every translation, they always do tons and tons and tons of different editions of it. And then here's the kicker, and this is the thing that, man, it just makes me scratch my head. So it says printed in Belgium, right? And it's the 14th printing of 1999, is it? Yeah, 14th printing of 1999. But it's printed in Belgium, and we know who's in Belgium, that big printer. And I'm not gonna make any assumptions here and say for sure it's them, but like maybe Major Bible printed in Belgium. This is why I'm kind of scratching my head, like, well, why did they do? I mean, they had a nice printer in Belgium. It's nice, decent paper, but why didn't they make it spy sewn? Right, kind of weird. Miss on their part, but not terrible. Actually, yeah, kind of terrible because the pages will start falling out. Let's keep going. You have your books of the Bible, your table of contents there, and you have your introduction and preface. And you have your Old Testament title page. Now, I will say this paper is pretty nice. It feels very nice. This is a very nice page. It's just so sad, right? So the opacity is, you guys can kind of see it already, but the opacity is kind of but the paper itself feels very nice. It's a very smooth paper, very easy to turn, very easy to grab. So it's a nice paper. It just needed a little bit more density to the paper, which obviously would increase the cost, and it wouldn't be a value addition at that point anymore. So I don't know, maybe the nicer editions, if they have like a premium goatskin version, I don't know. I'll have to check later. But here we are in Genesis. There you go. So you can see that the way the NIV handles it, and it's interesting to see that they did it back then for the 84 too. And the NIV handles Genesis as poetic. So they have a poetic setting there right out the gate for Genesis. And it is obviously a double column paragraph. I'll turn a little bit in here so you can see. You have your book starting chapter and verse on the top left corner, your book, chapter, and ending verse on the top right, page numbers in the top center, center column references all the way down. You have a double line drop cap indicating your chapter, and then you have a subject header at the beginning of each chapter. Sorry, excuse me, not at the beginning of each chapter, but just at the beginning of each section where it begins. So here you have it at the beginning of chapter 3, but then down here, Adam and Eve starts a little bit after the start of chapter 2. And I'll show you here what they do for the cross-references. So you have your long list of cross-references going through there through the middle column. And then if there's an overflow, they put at the end on the right-hand side. You can see it on this page also on the right-hand side. And then you have your footnotes down here underneath the cross-references. So fairly stacked. This is a decent Bible to study from if you're into that kind of thing. Studying from an Ultrathin. I don't mind. I guess it'd be good for taking to church, nice and portable. Nice and thin. Let's go. Let's keep going, right? Shall we? Look at all those cross-references. Goodness. It's like a block. All right. Let's go. Let's go. Let's all go to the Psalms. Let's all go to the Psalms. Let's all go to the Psalms and see ourselves some paper. So there you go. There's a nice view of the close-up of the paper. Now, where it looks really weird, it almost looks like the center column here is turned gray. And it's not colored gray. It's just for the simple fact that there's so much text on the opposite side. It makes it look like it's colored gray. And then you can see some definite show through here. Now, yeah, it's pretty bad. So for me, show through becomes like a big, like a big miss when you can read the words not on the opposite side of the page, but on the very next sheet of paper. So here I can easily see and make, and that's not. Well, here, look, I'll turn the page, right? So right there, and make. So that text was showing completely through this paper. Yeah, so at that point, it's becoming a little cumbersome. And actually, like here, I can see do not, but then I can also see the text that's behind the do not. So I'm seeing through like 4 pages of text. So yeah, this is definitely not the best paper as far as show through is concerned. There's been better, which is a shame because the paper, again, it feels very smooth. It's very nice paper, turns very easily. It has a very like high quality feel. It's just the paper density isn't there. So whenever you hear somebody talking about like GSM, I know a lot of times Bible reviewers will like to equate GSM with the thickness of the paper, but that's not the case. GSM is a measurement of density, paper density. So you can have paper that's like a trade paperback, right? That paper is very thick, but it's not very dense. That's why a paperback book, like I don't know, like a Danielle Steele love novel, that's why they're so lightweight, is because that paper isn't very dense. Whereas if you get like a Cambridge Pitt Minion, it's got some heft to it because that paper is very dense, right? Or if you get, I don't know, like the Judge or something, like a very dense paper, it's just going to have a lot of heft and a lot of weight to it. So it has to do with that paper density. Let's keep going to the beginning of the New Testament. There we are at the end of Malachi. And we have our New Testament title page. I like the font, not too shabby. So I filmed so many videos last night that my battery died and the camera cut out. So here I am the next morning to continue on with this review. So here we are in Matthew. One of the interesting things I wanted to point out was something that's unique to the NIV 84. And you can see here there's some like little cross references. And these are kind of like topical cross references that they put underneath these subject headings. So if you go over to, say, Luke 3:23 through 38, that'll be the other genealogy of Jesus. And then these other references to the Old Testament, those are going to be kind of more topics that are, areas that are related to this topic. So in this case, the genealogy of Jesus. It's just interesting to see that they don't do that with every section, obviously, like here, but in some of the larger kind of main portions where there's topics associated with it, they do that. And it's a nice feature. We'll go a couple pages in and notice that it is a black letter text. I can't appreciate here all of the subject headers. And there you can see more of the references and that sort of thing. So quite a bit there. Makes it a little easier to find what you're looking for in a pinch. One thing I would recommend against is, a lot of times people will, if they're new to the Bible, they'll see eye for an eye, right? And they'll read this little section. And albeit in this instance, it might just be contained to that little section. But it's always important to remember to read in context. So you want to make sure that you're reading some verses before or after, or even the whole chapter, sometimes even the whole book, depending on the book. It would be relevant for the discussion at hand if it's something that's kind of a critical discussion or something that you're discussing with somebody, in the sense that you're trying to make a specific point, because sometimes the text, the idea might not be limited to just this specific area with this title, right? It might be pulling some information from an area before the text, or it might kind of involve some stuff after the text. So always make sure that you're reading in context. Very important, right? Let's keep going. We'll get to the end of the Bible there, and there's a couple things at the end here. We see a concordance. So here you have the end of Revelation, and then you have your table of weights and measures, the concordance title page, an introduction. This is the NIV Concordance, copyright 1982 by the Zondervan Corporation, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Then we have abbreviations of the Bible, for the books of the Bible, excuse me. And then we have our concordance begins. I'll show you that right there at the top. And the concordance goes for a little bit, 76 pages, and then we have our maps. And these maps are full color. They're on a glossy paper there. You can see the reflection, but they're fairly nicely done. Kind of an older style. Not super old, not like some of the vintage stuff we've seen, but kind of early 90s look. This gets a little... It almost looks like a sketch of a person. Look at that, with like some wild hair. A little caricature, I don't know. Got a little wild with the travels there. So yeah, maps wrap up. And we just have the end sheet there, and that's it. Let's get you some measurements. So this one comes in at 8 and 5/8 inches tall by 5 and 5/8 inches wide. And again, it's an ultra thin, so it's going to be a little bit thinner, hopefully under an inch. And it is. It's about 7/8 of an inch thick. We'll go ahead and look at the fonts, and then I'll show some comparisons right quick. So we'll start with the uppercase, and we'll do the D in David. It appears to be about a 9-point font versus Times New Roman for the uppercase. And we'll look at M here in Ahimelech. And it's also a 9-point font versus Times New Roman. So a 9-point font overall for this edition. Not too shabby, to be honest, considering its size. I mean, I guess it's a full-size footprint, but certainly on thinner paper. So I guess a 9-point would be kind of in that realm of expectation. But definitely a nice edition. Let me compare it to a couple others here, and some ones I've done recently. So this is another Holman. This is a modern Holman Ultrathin. So you can see the difference here in size. They're about the same, right? The difference being, though, the thickness. So this is the newer one on top for the CSB. I mean, granted, it's a different translation, but you can see that they kind of moved away from this thinner profile. I have a couple other ones here. So it's a little bit, this older edition is a little bit thinner than the newer stuff, but not quite as thin as the, I love pulling this one out, not quite as thin as the older stuff. So if you're looking for super thin, an older Collins might be the way to go. I think this is a Collins Fontana. Let's double check. Now, obviously, this Collins Bible is only available in a King James Version. Yeah, Fontana. It's only available in the King James Version. But you can kind of get a feel for the thickness there. This is probably about as thick as a pit minion, I would imagine. So, pretty thin on the trim side there. Bible buddies, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them down below. Otherwise, until next time, bye.